If you're a sales professional or the leader of a sales team, then you know what it's like to go through the welcome ups and the unexpected downs any given day can bring to your business. But how can you rise above the challenges and become more effective and more successful while contributing to the success of others at all times? JaMarr Brown has some thoughts about that, a highly sought after consultant, trainer, speaker, and the author of this book right here, What's Your Sales Story? JaMarr, welcome. It's nice to see you.
Jeff, it's great to see you as well.
Let's find out a little bit about you first of all, JaMarr. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your sales story?
Well, Jeff, I'll tell you my sales story. You look at the basic aspects of what a person usually says in terms of their accolades. And so I've been salesperson of the year. I've been sales manager of the year. I've managed teams from 9 people to 130 people. I built sales organizations. I've written books on sales. But that's not the important thing from my perspective. The important thing is how I've studied business over the years and how I've dedicated myself to really helping other sales and business professionals get whatever is in the way of their success out of the way so they can reach their full potential. And my story dates back to when I was a young kid just out of college. I had an internship while I was in college at Allergan Pharmaceuticals. And then at the end of my senior year, they gave me a full-time offer to join the company full-time as a pharmaceutical sales rep. So I was one of the lucky ones, had a great opportunity at the start of my career out of college. However, I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't prepared for it because in college I was a great student. I was a basketball player. I was a student body president. And then I had this great opportunity to join corporate America afterwards while I was making, great money with the company car and expense account. So it kind of went to my head. And to make a long story short, after the first 2 years of being a sales professional at Allergan Pharmaceuticals, I found myself sitting just like this in front of my boss saying that I was burned out, not cut out for sales. I should look for a different job because my sales numbers were terrible. And I had to make a decision at that point. Was I going to continue my mindsets and my behaviors that led me down that path of blaming others, blaming the manager, making excuses for my lack of results? Or was I going to do something different and possibly have a different result? And thankfully, some of the things that I had learned from mentors over the years came back to me, and I ended up applying those principles, changing my mindset, changing my behaviors, and literally a year after that meeting with my boss who told me I was burnt out, not cut out for sales, I ended up being salesperson of the year at Allergan Pharmaceuticals, the youngest person to ever do that. So that's really who JaMarr Brown is, someone that has gone through what a lot of salespeople are struggling with, and I figured out a way to break through the noise and break through what's getting in the way of their success to become the success that they should be in their career.
It's an unbelievable, remarkable story. It's kind of going from worst to first, really, when you think right about it. And now you have this book, What's Your Sales Story? How is this book different? I mean, what did you really strive to do by writing this particular book for the people that you really want to read it?
Well, I think what's different, Jeff, and I read all the time, and so many people have so many great books on sales and management and leadership. And I, like for example, this year, my New Year's resolution at the start of the year was to read 1 book a month. And so I'm on track to do that now that we're, towards the end of the year. And so I learned from all the books out there. I think what's different about my book, What's Your Sales Story, from other sales books is most sales books talk about the principles of selling. And there's really kind of 5 basic things in terms of sales. One is the introduction. How do you introduce yourself? Identifying customer needs, uncovering what's important to them. Benefit selling, the agreement. Are we in agreement that this makes sense for you and would you like to move forward? The trial close. Is there anything that would prevent you from moving forward? And then the actual close to try and close the deal. So all sales books really have that 5-step process. They may have different terms, different ways of saying it, but that's really the essence of sales. What I realized as I was going through my struggles is I had mastered that. I knew the 5 tenets of sales. I knew how to probe and ask questions, but I was still unsuccessful. And the question is why? And that's because the books don't teach one core thing, and that is the important thing is not the process of selling, it's the person that's doing the selling. And if the person isn't where he or she needs to be mentally and emotionally, if they're not in a position where they do ask a question and they really care about the response they're going to get from the customer, then they're not going to be as effective as they could be. And there's other things like the ego that gets in the way of a salesperson's success in terms of when you're doing well, the ego says you've made it, you've arrived, and you can coast. And so you stop doing the things that you did to help you become successful. And then when you're struggling like I was early in my career, you want to blame everybody else because the ego says it's not your fault, not your responsibility. And so most books don't discuss those things. And so what I decided to do with What's Your Sales Story, and it was really painful at first because I wanted to expose the truth, my own truth, in terms of what I was struggling with. What I uncovered as I wrote the book and released it on the market and had hundreds of people contact me and tell me how it was so different than other books, how it changed their career, was that it spoke to the heart of the matter. It spoke to the salesperson when they're at home, looking in the mirror, and they're real with themselves saying, I may go out and smile and act like everything is great, but it's really not. In my book, What's Your Sales Story, helps people to understand where they are with themselves in front of that mirror to uncover what's getting in the way of their success. So they can not only apply the tenets of selling, but they have improved themselves as a person and their outlook and their mindset and their behaviors to be able to effectively apply those principles of selling.
JaMarr, tell me who you wrote this book for. Who would benefit most from reading this?
Jeff, I think that's a great question. When I first wrote the book, really my intention was to leave a legacy for my daughter. I wanted to, share who her father really is, to help her understand some of the lessons and things I had gone through so that she wouldn't repeat the same mistakes and she could achieve the level of success I know that she can. But then I also thought about sales professionals out there that may have been going through or are going through the things that I was going through early in my career in terms of, you want to be more successful, you have potential, but there's something wrong. You're not quite where you want to be. And so, and the most of the books out there don't really uncover the truth of the matter about what is in the way of a person's success. They talk about the principles of selling, but they don't help the person understand what is in the way of their success as an individual. And so when I released the book, I was very pleased to know that thousands of sales professionals read the book, emailed me, called me, went to seminars that I put together and said how much the book had changed their life and their career, not because it taught them, the tenets of selling, how to close and probe and open, but it helped them to uncover what was in the way of their success from a personal standpoint. And that's why the book is called What's Your Sales Story?
Well, let's talk about it then just a little bit, kind of dig into it a little bit more deeply. Why do so many people underachieve? And maybe they've had success in the past and maybe they've hit a rut all of a sudden and they're not quite producing up to their standards.
Well, Jeff, it's once again, it's a really good question. And there's several reasons for that. Number one, let's talk about the sales professionals that are successful, that are succeeding, that are achieving. And of course, throughout my career, I've won sales awards and been salesperson of the year and led sales teams that have ended up number one. And that's great. And those individuals are doing a phenomenal job. But see, here's a problem with that. How do you repeat that success over and over again? How do you not just have, one good year, 2 good years, but you have a career of success? And that's where you start to see the drop off. Some people are successful for a year and all of a sudden the next year they really drop down. Part of the reason for that is what I call the ego of a sales professional. And that is when you are performing, when you're doing well, you are, the belle of the ball, so to speak. You win all the awards, you get the stock options, you're on stage, you get the ring, you get, and stock options, the whole 9. And then your mind starts to say, I've arrived. I've achieved. You start reading your own press clippings and you think that you're the greatest person in the world. And guess what? You stop doing the things.
You put a ceiling on.
You put a ceiling on it,
yep.
And you stop doing the things that you did to make you successful in the first place, and then your numbers start to fall off. And then the other part of the ego kicks in, which is, when I'm not doing well, it's not my fault. And so you start to blame the company, the products, the competition, the comp plan, and all these things. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where, you don't know how to get back to where you were before. You don't know how to get back on top. And so the book that I wrote, What's Your Sales Story, speaks to that individual, right? Because it's not a matter of the process of selling, because the person that's successful and the person that has fallen off, they know the process of selling. I mean, they know, if they didn't know the process, they wouldn't have been successful in the first place. Right. But they don't understand how the ego gets in the way of their success. They don't understand how when you start looking at your own success, you start, hanging up your posters and your awards on the walls, that they forget one very important thing. And Jeff, I want you to hear this very carefully, and that is they focus more on the achievement versus a person that actually achieved those things. The person that have achieved those things, that's the important person. And so they forget about that. They think that they are the award, but you're not the award. You're the person that achieved that award, and sometimes people forget that and they fall off the rails. And that's one of the reasons why this book can help those individuals get back to where they needed to get to.
But that's not to suggest that we should take our eyes necessarily off the goal or not focus on the goal per se, right?
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that, and the way that I look at that is focusing on people over profit, right? In sales, at the end of the day, there's an end user. There's someone in the field I've been in for the past 20 plus years. It's been in the medical field. I've been to children's hospitals where, if you really pay attention, it's heartbreaking to know that you're helping these children have a little bit of a better quality of life, but guess what? They're not leaving that hospital, right? I'm gonna walk out, I'm gonna get my company car, I'm gonna go on vacation with my family, I'm gonna win these awards, but that little girl, that little boy, they're not. And so the important thing is not my life or what I'm gonna achieve or what I'm gonna do. It's helping that little boy, helping that little girl. It's helping the customers that you serve treat their patients better. Whatever product you're selling, I don't know if you're selling a car or you're selling paper or whatever it is, there's someone that has a purpose for why they want to purchase your product. And when you focus on that person and you are relentless in terms of your process of helping the customers that you're working with get that product to the end user and helping them understand how your product works and what makes it different and how they can really benefit the people that they're supporting with what they're trying to do, that's what's important. When you have that focus, guess what? The accolades come as a result, and I mentioned this before as we were talking. When I focus on my own income and being successful and getting promoted, I failed as a sales professional. But when I focused on the patients and helping people, and I stopped worrying about my ranking, I stopped worrying about how much money I was making, I went from last in the country to number one in the country. So no one can tell me that focusing on your purpose and the patients is not what you're supposed to do. And that's what I teach, that's what I write about, that's what I remind people of. And the ones that really understand that and get that, they achieve phenomenal success. The ones that focus on the profit and the bottom line sales, they might have some short-term success, but I guarantee it won't be long-term success.
It's actually, it sounds pretty simple, obviously, to take and put into practice for people who have fallen into some bad habits and maybe they have let their ego get in the way. And let's face it, how many of us haven't?
It happens to everybody. Right.
So it's learning to deal with these things and kind of coming at it from a fresh perspective. It's learning how to deal with those egos and your own ego, and then learning then what to do to try to move that focus to other people and to the folks that you're helping at the end. I know all the other stuff is going to come along as a matter of time. Let's talk. I wanted to ask you about your speaking experience, because this book has allowed you to really get connected with a lot of people out there who are looking for ways to improve, not just themselves, but really entire sales forces and entire sales teams. Tell us a little bit about what you do when you go out on these talks that you do for these companies, and really just exactly what people are able to get out of them.
Absolutely, and I'll start with where it all started, because I didn't have the idea to write the book until I gave a talk. And so I was invited to speak at an internship program that I was a part of when I was in college. And they wanted me to speak to their group of seniors who were going to graduate. And they asked me to talk about success. And at that point, I had been salesperson of the year, I had been sales manager of the year. So the internship company called me back and wanted to hold me up as a model of success. And I started writing down all these things that I would talk about. And I threw away that speech because it wasn't the truth, right? First, I wanted to talk about all the great things I'd accomplished, but it wasn't the truth. The truth was that it almost never happened because I wasn't thinking the right way and I wasn't doing the right things. I wasn't focused on the patients. I was focused on my pocketbook and I was focused on my success, and I had failed. Now I turned it around because I changed my mindset and my thoughts, and I became salesperson of the year. So I decided to give a raw talk on the reality of my situation. I talk about uncomfortable things, about how the ego gets in the way of your success, how you blame other people when you're not happy for your own results. And this group of students, or about 100 of them, they were staring, some people were crying, and you could hear a pin drop throughout the whole talk. I didn't know if it was going well or if I was bombing. I really didn't know.
Yeah.
And after I finished the talk, they stood up and gave me a standing ovation. And I had about 20 kids walk up to me and say, I'm so glad you shared what you shared, because I'm concerned about my future. I'm concerned about my career. I have these things going on inside me that you're talking about, but no one else has ever talked about it the way you talked about it. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna be brave, and I'm gonna go out and tell the truth. And so that launched my speaking career. Yeah. And so I decided, because it was so powerful for that group of students, to turn my story into this book. So originally, it was a talk to college students, and then it turned into a book for sales professionals, and I do talks to sales teams of 5 people to hundreds of people. I speak to organizations all over the US. And so that's been amazing to be able to do that. But another thing that I do is I have started to develop a lot of talks for college students that are trying to understand, how do they get out of college, get into a corporate career, and have success? Because the one thing I hadn't mentioned is that once I achieved salesperson of the year by going from last to number 1, my career took off like a rocket ship. And there were some very clear, concise, and concrete things I did that made my career take off faster than many of my peers. And I'm teaching that to these college students so that they don't have to go through the struggles I went through. I teach it to sales professionals so they can get over what is in the way of their success, so they can make a better living for their family and provide better for their kids and provide more money for their college funds and things of that nature. So I talk to a wide audience, from college students to sales professionals to sales managers and to entire organizations that really want to understand, how do we go from where we are now to becoming the success I know we can become.
So JaMarr, just to kind of tie everything up here in this conversation, if you could leave us with a final thought before we go, what would that be?
That would be that I want every professional, whether it be someone who is in college about to graduate that's going to enter the workforce, or people like ourselves who have been working for a while, or people that are early in their career, whoever you are, I want you to really look at what is in the way of your success. Everyone has potential, and everyone has so much untapped potential, whether you've been successful in the past or you haven't, or you trying to figure out how to get there. And the one thing that I love doing is taking my entire career, 25 years almost in business, where I've been salesperson of the year, sales manager of the year, been in marketing, a corporate sales trainer, I've written 2 books, I've done radio shows, TV shows. I've managed organizations from 6 people to 150 people. And so I am so excited that I can now take all that knowledge and all that experience and all those lessons and help the professional achieve levels of success as great as they would like it to be. And so everyone has something that is getting in the way of their success. Everyone has something that they might be struggling with, that they want to break through, whether it be an organization or an individual. And through my book, What's Your Sales Story, and through the talks that I give on sales and management, and one other very exciting talk I give is to college students, is called Your Future Starts Now. And that is, what do you need to know now so that you don't become someone in the future that says, if I only knew then what I know now? Well, let me tell you what you need to know now so you don't become that person that says that. And that's what's exciting to me. And I love seeing the breakthroughs in people. I love seeing the light bulbs go off. And I love seeing the people that I've helped, whether they be individuals or organizations, that have contacted me for individual coaching, for motivational talks, for consulting, that have achieved levels of success that they had only dreamed of in the past. And so that's the final thought. Let's look at what we can do to achieve that breakthrough as an individual or for your organization.
Well, I know that a lot of people can learn a lot from you. I know I've learned a lot from just in this discussion alone. And for those people who are interested in getting your book, we're going to kind of share with them how they can do that. But first of all, I want to thank you so much for joining me here in studio, JaMarr.
Thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
I appreciate it. You can learn a lot more about JaMarr Brown and even inquire about having him speak at a future event you may be planning by visiting his website, JaMarRBrown.com. And of course, while you're there, you can order a copy of his book, What's Your Sales Story, which is also available as an audio version. Again, that website is JaMarRBrown.com. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks so much for your time.